Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes to get some more attendees joining, so just be patient. Thank you. Okay, why don't we get started? I'll introduce myself. So I'm Valerie Johnston. I am the Director of Indoor Environmental Quality here at Pinchin. And I'm pleased to introduce today Ryan Darcy. He is a Senior Project Manager in the Indoor Environmental Quality Group based out of Pinchin's Waterloo office. Ryan has been working with Pinchin's IAQ group since 2009 with experience in both British Columbia and more recently in Ontario. In addition to Ryan's senior project manager role, he's also the national practice specialist for Pinchin's infection control services. Ryan's consulting experience generally includes microbial contamination, water damage, indoor air quality, and infection control services in a variety of buildings from commercial real estate, public institutions, hospitals, schools, and residential settings. Recently, Ryan has been effectively implementing the use of real-time indoor air quality monitoring building solutions to deliver clients' needs related to monitoring occupancy conditions and ensuring critical infrastructure occupants are protected during construction projects. So with that, take it away, Ryan.
Great, thanks, Valerie. So good afternoon, everybody, or good morning to those that are on the West Coast, if you're able to join us today from there. We're going to be discussing building environmental technology solutions, and more so remote building environmental technology solutions, otherwise known at Pinchin, we call it ActiveIAQ. So you may hear me refer to this technology today as ActiveIAQ quite frequently, but it does refer to the remote building environmental technology solutions that we're all here to learn a little bit more about today. So just a little bit of a background about the ActiveIAQ program that we have developed at Pinchin. So this technology is the brainchild of one of my colleagues, David Shear. In around 2017, 2018, he identified the need or the evolution of the technology that exists within the indoor air quality world, to determine that as the cost of the sensors became lower to deliver indoor air quality projects, that we could actually potentially use that to our advantage to give our clients kind of a full holistic kind of approach to managing indoor air quality within their buildings. So back in 2017, 2018, we were looking to partner up with a technology firm that could help us implement a secure and effective way at delivering this technology. And we stumbled across a company called 11X. They are a Waterloo-based technology firm. So again, this is all kind of a made in Canada kind of system that we've developed. And they are our ability to basically give us to take the technology and take the data from the site, deliver it to the cloud, and then have us being able to actually see the magic happen and be able to analyze the data in real time. So basically, Pinchin 11X are providing Internet of Solutions for your buildings, campuses, and cities. For those who aren't familiar with the term Internet or the Internet of Things terminology, that essentially refers to any device that's connected to the Internet, which you can then access usually through a third-party app to be able to remotely connect to these devices via the Internet and cellular capabilities as well. So this could be something as simple as your dishwasher that lets you know when your loaded dishwasher or when your load has been completed. It can also be your thermostat or for your home that will let you know if your filter requires changing or if there's any fluctuations that are unusual with the temperature. It can give you a notification that will let you know that your thermostat or furnace may not be working properly. And this can also extend to even vehicles that they're producing now that you have the ability to actually access and start up right from your phone via the internet. So all of these are kind of part of the infrastructure of the Internet of Things, and that's really kind of the crux of what we're going to be speaking about today. So this is just a diagram that shows kind of how our technology works. So the sensors that Pinchin utilizes are a LoRaWAN technology. So this is a long-range wireless technology that 11X has helped us identify as a very good way of getting information and data from our sites to the cloud, and then ultimately able for us to access that data in real time. So you can see in the diagrams here, Internet of Things, they all work on different variations of different networks. So they can be used via Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, LTE, and 5G. As you can see here, though, the LoRaWAN technology has a very, very large coverage range. So this essentially results in having less gateways or routers on site to be able to connect our sensors to the gateway or router to give us a much larger, broader range of coverage with these devices. Otherwise, if we're using Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, we just may not have that same level of coverage, and you would require more gateways and more infrastructure to be added to the buildings to be able to actually access the information. The LoRaWAN technology also overlaps with the cellular LTE network, which allows us to actually bring in our own networks and to building for a secure and reliable source of data information, which I'll speak to shortly here. So again, the benefits to the LoRaWAN technology is it's scalable, secure, reliable, longevity, and it's also a low-cost solution for the implementation of these devices. So just a little bit about how the ActiveIAQ system generally works in a very simple diagram here. So what we would do or what you can do in your buildings is install sensors. These sensors then speak. So these sensors, and I'll get into the different types of sensors that we typically would deploy for an ActiveIAQ project, but essentially we'll deploy sensors monitoring indoor air quality parameters throughout the building, either at specific locations of concern or just representatively throughout the building to capture general occupancy conditions. These sensors then speak to the wireless connectivity. This would be essentially the gateway or router. That router is then connected to the LTE cellular network. Essentially, we're bringing in our own cellular network to the building. We're going to be relying on any current infrastructure, Wi-Fi technology, or any hardwired process. So again, this is a very secure process that we're implementing and bringing to your buildings. Once these sensors and the gateway are connected to each other, the gateway then sends the information again through the LTE cellular network to the 11X cloud, where they assist us with the ability to get the data from the LTE network into the Pinchin core. The Pinchin core is the end user interface that you would see when accessing the data for evaluating indoor air quality in the buildings. And from the Pinchin core, and I will give some examples of what it's capable of shortly, but that is where basically the magic happens and where you're able to essentially see and interact with the indoor air quality conditions in real time. So for those on the call who are not familiar with the current kind of process to indoor air quality, essentially what we currently are doing, or what we were doing in the past, is essentially usually on a proactive basis, sometimes on a reactive basis. Our clients will need to evaluate their indoor air quality, just to demonstrate to their tenants that they are meeting the requirements for acceptable air quality within their buildings, which is typically part of your lease agreement or any other type of, just green building code requirements, just to demonstrate that you are meeting acceptable air quality. So in the past, we would go around the building collecting spot measurements, really collecting a snapshot of time when we're on site to evaluate whether or not the air quality was acceptable. Definitely a suitable approach, but to get more granular data and to really be kind of in tune with the whole building at once, this is where we started to develop the process of ActiveIAQ to give our clients the ability to have a consultant essentially on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the downsides of this technology was it was just a snapshot of time. We weren't really evaluating what the occupancy conditions were over a long period of time, or any fluctuations throughout the day. We were only going through the building once, maybe twice within a day, to capture very brief air quality measurements. So kind of the switch that we're doing, and the shift that we're seeing in the world, especially with the cost of the sensors becoming much lower with these Internet of Technology devices, is that we're getting down to a much lower cost related to one of these indoor air quality sensors related to ActiveIAQ. Just for an example, this device here is EVM7, measures a full suite of indoor air quality parameters, from carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, temperature, relative humidity, particulates, and VOCs. This device here does the exact same measurements. However, cost-wise, you're looking probably around $7,000 to $8,000 to purchase brand new, where one of these Internet of Technology sensors, you're looking at about 500 to 1,000, based on the type of sensor that you're looking to install. So again, the benefits to this ActiveIAQ system compared to the legacy of indoor air quality is that we're going to be able to monitor the conditions in real time, and you're able to access that data immediately. You're not waiting for a consultant to prepare your report to indicate what the air quality conditions are. Another function of ActiveIAQ that we're able to provide, compared to the older technologies, are, again, we'll be able to have the data available immediately. There is some requirement for some annual maintenance. However, it's very minimal, if any at all. When there is any exceedances to the indoor air quality parameters, you can set up notifications to the required parties, so that action can be taken, again, in real time, to ensure that indoor air quality objectives are being met. And we can also look at the trends, and review the analytics to confirm the indoor air quality over extended periods of times. And again, not just that snapshot in time that we're historically achieving. So this is just a diagram of what an ActiveIAQ system will appear on a job site or in a building. So the Pinchin core does all the analysis, storage, and visualization. Again, I will get into the Pinchin core shortly. But this diagram here just basically shows the outline, or a diagram that shows where sensors can be installed through a building. Again, these sensors are monitoring different air quality parameters based on your required conditions or objectives. These sensors then speak to the gateway or router. The router then has a secure connection to the LTE network, and then therefore to the 11x cloud, and then to the Pinchin core. These are all secure access points. So again, like I said previously, we're not relying on any existing infrastructure, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth technology to deliver the solution. We're bringing in our own LTE network, which avoids a lot of cybersecurity concerns that most of our clients have related to bringing in new technology to their buildings. One thing to note too with the sensors, they're very easy to install. They're simply battery operated, just AA batteries that we specially order for these devices. And the batteries do last up to 5 years. We were somewhat skeptical when we first were working with 11X, and they were indicating these batteries would last for that length of time. But now that we are into 5-6 years of deploying these sensors at sites, we're actually seeing that type of longevity from the battery sensors. So it's a very, very simple technology, easy to deploy, basically peel and stick technology where you can deploy these anywhere in the building, and as well you do have the capabilities of moving them around as well as you deem fit. So this is just some examples of the different types of sensors that we're typically utilizing in the indoor air quality or ActiveIAQ projects that we're associated with. So I'll just briefly go over the capabilities of what each one of these does. They all do have their specific advantages, especially when monitoring certain parameters or another. So this device here, on the top left corner, this is an LSIS CO2 monitor. So generally speaking, it's monitoring for carbon dioxide, temperature, relative humidity in the air. Also has a light sensor and occupancy sensor, so you can kind of have an idea of, if the rooms that we're monitoring are occupied at the time of any adverse result, or just wanting to verify conditions during occupancy hours. This device here in the kind of top left middle, this is a leak detector sensor. So again, this is not everything is indoor air quality related, but as we know, water damage events can result in mold growth in buildings, which can impact the air quality. So this is actually a leak detector sensor that can be placed in an area that could be higher risk for water damage, or under a kitchen sink, for example, where if there is any issues with water damage that occurs, an immediate notification can be sent out to the building facility manager or required parties to immediately react to that water damage event without any significant delays. So again, that's a very kind of critical tool that that a lot of our clients have kind of been very warm to the fact that we can use this technology to prevent damage within buildings, and not just the capabilities of indoor air quality monitoring. These next two devices here are indoor air quality monitors. So they do temperature or carbon dioxide. They do have the ability for add-ons for carbon monoxide. They do temperature, relative humidity, particulates, and VOCs in the air. So really the suite of air quality parameters that we're typically looking at during an indoor air quality study. And then this sensor down here is just a simple door open, door close sensor. So it can allow you to know when a room is being accessed or not being accessed, to almost as a level of security, as well as if you do have any kind of critical doorways to, let's say, a construction zone that needs to be maintained closed at all times, this device would be able to allow you to ensure that you are being able to control those types of site conditions. This device here is a pressure differential monitor sensor. So very useful in the world of infection control, or during construction projects, or even asbestos abatements, where we can monitor, again, in real time, the pressure differentials required to maintain that no contaminants from construction source, or just in general trying to protect your critical infrastructure, or maintaining the requirements for pressure differentials during an abatement. This can be installed on site, and again, it will be able to give you real-time alerts when your pressure differentials are outside of the required thresholds, which could pose a risk to building occupants as well as critical infrastructure. And the last device here is a simple motion detector. Again, that can give us the ability to evaluate whether or not an area is currently occupied, and how that occupancy can affect the indoor air quality conditions within the building. So this is a brief demonstration of what the Pinchin core looks like. Again, there's lots of other programs out there, especially with some of these indoor air quality devices that have their own third-party apps to access the data. This is Pinchin's basically program or user interface to be able to access the indoor air quality or ActiveIAQ data. So it has the ability to identify where you do have different sensors deployed throughout the geographical area. You can zoom in and out and actually see granularly which buildings actually contain your sensors. So it's kind of a good view of just trying to overall, if you have a large portfolio of buildings, to be able to just demonstrate and know kind of where each one is within the country of Canada. We also, so on top of the just demonstrating the locations of our sensors, we do have an analytics ability to be able to review in real time what the indoor air quality conditions are. You can also compare different areas and overlap graphs to show, if there is any deficiencies with the indoor air quality. You can compare that to certain areas of the building and be able to target any problem locations as necessary. And you can go back to basically as so long as the indoor air quality or the ActiveIAQ system has been installed, you can go back from day one, from when the data started to collect, up to current real-time data. So it's definitely something that you can take the data and review it further back in time. You can set up notifications. So notifications can be set up to different stakeholders or required parties within the building to get notifications when an indoor air quality parameter is outside of the recommended range. So these can be set up to be proactive ranges, critical ranges, or danger ranges where something critical in the building may be occurring. And the notifications can be set up via email, SMS text. Those are the two main ones that we utilize, but we were always looking to expand into different types of abilities for notifications. There's ability to look at the building's floor plans and identify which specific sensors in which location. From there, you're able to then, you can pinpoint again in real time what the current indoor air quality conditions are. You can also use that information to triangulate where a possible indoor air quality issue may be occurring, which I'll describe in a case study in a little bit. And then it also gives us the ability to check the gateway statuses to make sure everything's running properly. And then there's also a reporting function, which we can generate reports on the fly in real time, but able to just select the data ranges that you want, the location of the sensor you want, and it'll give you a full summary report of the indoor air quality ranges for that ability. And then we also have the ability, which I'll get into in a little while, of being able to have automated reports sent to a given stakeholder group on a regular intervals, be it 1 month or a daily, weekly, monthly, whatever's needed. We can definitely help facilitate those types of automated reports. So that's kind of the brief overview of kind of how the ActiveIAQ system works. Ultimately, it's really not that complicated once you get down into the nitty-gritty of identifying the types of sensors that you require, the compatibility with the LoRaWAN technology, and then the overall user interface with the Pinchin core to be able to give you that data in real time. So this is a little bit of data stories on how we have used ActiveIAQ at Pinchin to be able to deliver our clients with solutions to their needs related to the ability for real-time monitoring. So the first example I'm going to give is related to occupant density in carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide. So as you know, everyone, as we're within our buildings, we're all breathing and exhaling carbon dioxide. The approach to acceptable indoor air quality is you want to offset the levels of carbon dioxide with being able to bring in fresh air to a building to dilute the levels of carbon dioxide and to provide fresh, adequately ventilated indoor air quality. So what we noticed, and this is based on kind of a deployment of sensors that we had at Pinchin across our various offices, that at the beginning of COVID, we were actually able to see in real time that as buildings started to become less and less occupied when we had our stay-at-home orders, that we could see that the carbon dioxide concentrations quickly became reduced. So I know everyone's probably pretty sick of COVID these days, so I'm not going to get too much into kind of how we used the technology during COVID, but essentially to ensure that our clients were reoccupying their buildings with some level of due diligence and care, we were installing sensors within their building to be able to monitor in real time without playing guinea pig with their staff on whether or not the air quality was acceptable to keep the risk of COVID transmission as low as possible. So we were able to use the CO2 measurements to evaluate the relationship between ventilation and occupancy, optimizing occupant density and behavior, and giving the building operators, stakeholders, facility managers the ability to see that data in real time, and the ability to make adjustments as necessary, especially via the notification process, to ensure that we weren't going to be creating conditions or having conditions which could have increased the likelihood of COVID transmission occurring in buildings. So this is just, again, how we use the sensors essentially in real time. So this is just a quick analytical data that I was able to to produce off the Pinchin core. So this is just a photo showing their sensor installed on site. Nice clean area away from any windows and direct sun glare that could pose any possible issues. And then we were able to monitor the carbon dioxide levels again in real time over the course of a week. And essentially, this would give building operators the ability to make adjustments to the HVAC system on the fly. For example, if the CO2 measurements exceeded the desired thresholds, then additional fresh air can be brought into the building to reduce the CO2 levels and then ultimately reduce the lower or have a lower risk of a possible COVID transmission. All this was done in conjunction with the public health recommendations for physical distancing and staying at home when not feeling well as well. So again, it's just a graphical demonstration of what the user interface to the Pinchin core would look like when trying to access your data. Again, there's different parameters that we can measure. So the previous one was carbon dioxide. This is particulate. So again, in real time, being able to identify whether or not there's any risk to the occupants, or if they're just measuring the general indoor air quality parameters to demonstrate that the building is meeting the desired indoor air quality guidelines. And again, just another example of the exact same data or exact same data location, exact same time frame, and the ability for us to look at the data again in real time or go back in time and be able to review any incidences which could require further investigation. So as we were developing these systems for our commercial clients, there became a need to not only be able to access the data in real time, but to communicate the data to the staff in real time. So we didn't want to give everybody the access to the Pinchin core, as that could just result in unnecessary use or concerns of people not familiar with the indoor air quality guidelines. So essentially what we did was develop the ability to deliver reports in real time or reports on a regular interval. So for this example, we were actually getting reports every Monday morning to be able to deliver that to the staff, so we can demonstrate with a simple report what the air quality conditions were over the previous week, and then they could continue to come to work and be satisfied to know that the conditions were present. The conditions present were adequate to ensure that there was no COVID or a lesser chance of COVID transmission occurring. So these were very useful in addressing any occupant complaints or concerns on a weekly basis. And it allowed us to better understand the studies that we were performing and have the ability to track the indoor air quality as either occupancy increased, decreased, or we're just monitoring the indoor air quality parameters as recommended by best practice. So these automated reports can be a summary of the different indoor air quality parameters, the minimum, maximum, and average readings, as well as the median. And it can also be compared to, and these would be highlighted if they did exceed the desired indoor air quality range. And then on top of the table format, there's also graphs that overlap each location, which you can then use to compare a specific problem area to another area, or just to be able to visually see in a quick glance that the indoor air quality parameters were acceptable. Another use of ActiveIAQ, which historically was an issue when I was working in British Columbia, was a big thing. Wildfire smoke was definitely something that we would encounter quite regularly in the summer. Based on last summer throughout Canada, this is not something that we're just seeing out in out in British Columbia or the prairies. This is something that we're now encountering here in southern Ontario and the GTA. So how we were using ActiveIAQ to monitor wildfires is we would evaluate and measure fine particulates in the air. This would give us the ability to make occupancy changes. It could also trigger the installation of air scrubbers in the building, or it could also be a trigger for the facility management or HVAC company to actually make changes to how the HVAC system is operating to reduce the amount of outdoor air that you're bringing into your building, which could contain wildfire smoke. And evaluate and show the effectiveness of these controls in real time. So this is just a graphical demonstration of a wildfire event that was occurring predominantly in the interior of British Columbia in September of 2020. So you can see that this is the particulate measurements in Kelowna was quite high over that period of time. And you can see that in some of our other Pinchin offices on the West Coast, that we were obtaining, fairly high concentrations of outdoor fine particulates. So above, really anything above 16 is outside of indoor air quality guidelines for particulate, but we were seeing these measurements, well into the hundreds, but consistently above 50 micrograms per meter cubed. So based on this ability for us to determine this, for us to evaluate these, building operators or employers can make decisions in real time on how to address potential concerns related to wildfire smoke. And specifically, the main objective would be to implement any HVAC changes to ensure that the indoor environment is much more acceptable than the outdoor environment on those days. And the third example I'm going to give is a healthcare facility study. This could also apply to any critical infrastructure areas. I've done lots of indoor air quality studies in battery rooms for telecommunication network rooms in general, where they have very sensitive infrastructure, which we all rely upon for cellular networks, internet, and all kinds of public um, required infrastructure to be able to control. So in hospitals, what we are concerned about when it comes to the ability to monitor indoor air quality conditions is related to airborne dust. Specific occupants in a healthcare setting may have compromised immune systems, and they be more susceptible to developing secondary infections as a result of exposure to dust. So that's essentially why we would be concerned about indoor air quality within our healthcare facilities. It's really related around construction dust. So this is an example, a case study that is from one of our client sites where we were engaged to deploy and monitor particulate concentrations outside of a critical construction project where we had nearby critical or immune suppressed occupants. So to be able to demonstrate that this was an effective approach is that essentially the graph down here kind of shows what the general indoor air quality conditions are in the building over the course of this construction project. As it's quite obvious, you can see in this graph that there was a fairly high exceedance of dust escaping from the work area. As you can see, compared to the other data, it was all kind of well with under 10 micrograms per meter cubed, but this event actually spiked, I believe, closer to 100 micrograms per meter cubed over that period of time. And you can see that there was definitely something going on within the building or related to that construction activity that was causing particulates to escape from that work area. So given the fact that we had the ActiveIAQ system in place, the users or stakeholders of the project were getting notifications when the desired parameter was outside of the recommended range. So in real time, they were able to get alerts, determine, hey, there's something going on with this construction activity. They were able to review the activity at the time, determine that there was a deficient kind of work process going on that was resulting in the spike that we're seeing there, and in real time being able to adjust that work activity and put a stop to that issue, which could be putting the occupants of the building at risk. So yeah, as you can see, as we did investigate the issue, essentially what they were doing was cleaning the one of the ante room or one of the clean change rooms associated with infection control. They were using dry cleaning techniques. Essentially, we determined that activity needed to be adjusted, so they went to a wet cleaning technique. And as we can see, as they changed their work activity, we no longer were seeing any kind of significant variations in the changes of the conditions. Whereas doing this the old way that, Pinchin or another consultant would come in and do air quality measurements outside the infection control or construction containment, but we may not be able to capture these events in real time. So that's what the real benefit of having an ActiveIAQ system in place is, that you're able to capture these events in real time. You can also, and I kind of alluded to this previously, as part of the ActiveIAQ system in the Pinchin core, when you're reviewing the data, you can actually have a 2D and possibly even a 3D representation of where the air quality monitors are installed. So for example, if you had a two construction activities going on the same floor of a building, determining where the dust is coming from, or where the exceedance is coming from can be a bit of a challenge. However, with the deployment of multiple sensors around the different construction areas, you can actually use the sensor deployment to triangulate where exactly dust is likely coming from, to be able to target your investigations more thoroughly and effectively, knowing where exceedances are occurring. So let's say, for example, all the the sensors on the north end of this floor were all reading low, but the sensors kind of closer to the south end of the south construction zone were reading higher. Then that would indicate to us it's work area on the south end of the building that's actually the problem area, and we don't need to really focus too much on what's going on the north end of the building. So using all the sensors, all the data accurately, you're really able to get a full ability to really target where the problem issues may arise. You can also target areas too where you may have those more critical patients or infrastructure, and really kind of determine if there was a significant risk at the time. And again, as I previously indicated, real-time notifications and alerts can be set up. Again, I'm pretty confident with some of like the sensors you can buy just kind of over the counter that are connected to the Wi-Fi or Bluetooth technology. You can set up sensor alerts. However, with the Pinchin core, you can really get a good kind of coverage of the different stakeholders. You can add, delete, ensure everyone who needs to get alerts are getting alerts as needed in multiple different types of ways. So this allows contractors and clients to be able to react to any adverse situation on the fly, again, without having any kind of significant delay, to be able to address that, which could result in an impact to your infrastructure and, again, critical occupants. So just a bit of a conclusion to that healthcare study is that not just for healthcare purposes, it can be also used for construction of sensitive occupants, sensitive infrastructure. We're seeing a wide range of different uses by our clients with this technology. The technology is secure and doesn't require any IT implementation or integration. We do find a lot of our clients do appreciate the fact that we are bringing in our own technology, our own cellular network to the building. We're not piggybacking on any Wi-Fi or current hardwired infrastructure, which could pose as a cybersecurity risk. We are bringing in our own system, which is completely unique and different from any of the systems that you'd have on site, which again allows for a higher level of cybersecurity. Cost effectiveness wise, it's much more cost effective, especially over a long duration project to monitor indoor air quality. Let's say, for example, if Pinchin was involved on a healthcare project and we're coming in daily to collect indoor air quality measurements, first, we might not be on site at an appropriate time to catch an adverse event. Second, it's quite expensive to have staff and the cost of the old type of equipment to be deployed on the site, where easily it can be $1,000 to $2,000 a day for Pinchin to monitor in person, whereas you can deploy a suite of sensors that can accomplish the same thing for a much more cost-effective approach. And at the end of the project, the sensors are yours. Once you've purchased the sensors, they're essentially yours to do what you want with it. You can move it to a new location. You can use it for a new project. You can do whatever you wish with it. Pinchin would have additional fees to kind of reset up some of the notifications through the Pinchin core, but the upfront equipment cost would be essentially covered after the first project. The sensors can last up to 5 years. That's just the batteries. The sensors can last up to 10 years from the information that 11X is providing us, but 5 years is kind of the expected timeline for the battery use. And then the Pinchin core is extremely customizable and can be altered to your exact specific needs to ensure that you're not getting too much information, you're getting the information that you need to make educated decisions on your projects. So ultimately, just to kind of conclude, how does ActiveIAQ help me? It's essentially like having a expert or consultant in your building 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So this is done by the full-time monitoring. So parameters are to be monitored and compared against the established thresholds constantly. There's the data analytics. So this is the use of the Pinchin core. So Pinchin and or the facility management or project team has access to the data and can set custom notifications. There are self-reporting features, so you don't require any kind of wait time for someone to deliver a report. Again, the data can be either accessed in real time or automated reports can be generated at certain frequencies. You can do targeted follow-up assessments as needed. So if you do identify that there is an area of the building that it has exceedances beyond what you're trying to monitor, be it from just general indoor air quality to monitoring dust from a construction project, you can do very focused, targeted follow-up assessments without trying to just figure out what the problem is. You'll have a good starting base based on the fact that we already know where the indoor air quality conditions or deficiencies may be present. And then validation. Basically, once you identify that there is a possible problem, in real time, we're able to then determine whether or not any changes have been effective and the building is suitable for occupancy, or that your critical infrastructure or occupants are being protected at all times. And that is kind of my brief overview of ActiveIAQ at Pinchin. So this is, again, the systems that we've developed to be able to give our clients real-time solutions to indoor air quality and other building conditions, which could impact indoor air quality. So I'm just going to leave it for some questions now. I do see that there were some on there. Valerie is going to read them out and I will give a response.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So a couple came in through the presentation. So the first one was, do the sensors measure for radon?
They do not. So there are sensors that can be deployed that can measure for radon, but the suite of sensors that we're using with the LoRaWAN technology does not measure for radon.
Okay. The next question was, there's a photo shown with the devices mounted on a column. Is there another way to retrofit, install these, or design into new building projects to avoid vandalism in commercial or condo buildings?
Yeah, so we can definitely like secure them into walls. They'd be very similar kind of approach that I see frequently in apartment buildings where they actually put like a plastic cage usually around the device that can be then locked. That would be kind of the approach, or to be installing these at locations where they're less likely to be vandalized or damaged. However, we would still like to ensure that they're placed in locations representative of indoor air quality, so in breathing height. So it definitely vandalism could be an issue, but there are ways, and we're constantly looking at ways to secure our equipment to avoid damage or vandalism.
Okay. For existing buildings, when is the best season to install if problems are expected?
Well, this is a 365 day a year type of solution. So there really isn't a perfect time or not. Each season kind of has their own variations with indoor air quality. The seasons that I'm now that we're dealing with more wildfire smoke here in Ontario and just it seems like across the country, that summertime would be a great time to be monitoring. But indoor air quality conditions and deficiencies can occur across the entire year. A fan belt on your HVAC fan can go. You may not know for a few days, but once you start getting your high CO2 levels, you'll be able to determine there's something going on in the building. So they're really, like I said, there's not really a ideal time. This is a kind of a solution for your entire year, essentially.
Like any sensor exposed to airflow, they are subject to contamination or debris in the air. Are these sensors filtered depending on their role to maintain their accuracy?
Yeah, so these sensors, and great question. So these sensors do have a calibration mechanism that are built inside to them. Essentially, so let's just say for the dust sensor, essentially every 24 hours, and we can set these to different variations depending on what we expect to see dust wise in a building. But essentially, there is a fan that is basically sucking particulate over the sensor to give us our readings. But to do a calibration of that, the fan actually just goes into reverse, blows everything off that sensor, and then essentially that's our zero calibration. Typically, we can also, what we do is we pick certain times of the day that particulates less likely to occur, or we're going to have lower or background CO2 concentrations where, at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, where we expect zero occupancy, is where we would trigger these self calibrations to occur. Like I said, they can be done daily, weekly, monthly, but typically what we're setting our projects up are a weekly calibration. That again, these sensors do it all on their own, and then as you're monitoring the data, if something does seem like it doesn't really make sense, like you're getting really high CO2 concentrations where there's no occupancy in the building, that may indicate that that sensor could require replacement. But from the probably 100, like between 100 to 200 sensors that I've deployed, I think only one of our sensors have had that kind of major malfunction, which of course we replace at that time.
How much does it cost for the sensors and the annual subscription?
So the sensors themselves do range depending on what parameters that you're looking to monitor. So if you're looking for your general suite, and again, I'd have to look at our current pricing and everything to get exact numbers. I can provide a quote if necessary, but a sensor can range from $300 to $500 for just basic carbon dioxide, temperature, relative humidity, to up to close to $2,000 per sensor if you're looking at the whole suite of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, which is an add-on sensor, so that actually increases the cost significantly uh, by a good $500 of those sensors. Temperature, relative humidity, particulate, and VOCs. Those are the kind of range. And then for the annual subscription cost, because of course there is a cellular network that we're involving, and there is fees associated with that. The cost is around. Again, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. It does increase over time, or it increases slowly every year, just with inflation. But typically, the subscription is based on the number of gateways installed. So if you have a larger building, more gateways, the annual subscription fee is going to be higher. Where if you have a smaller building and just one gateway, the annual fee is lower. Typically, I'm seeing the annual fee is around $1,500 per gateway.
Okay. How accurate are the sensors compared to real-time monitors, and can the results be relied upon?
Yeah, the results. So we've done our own comparison studies to determine whether or not our traditional model of indoor air quality, using a $7,000, $8,000 device, and comparing to these LoRaWAN sensors, is that they're very, very close to being the exact same. Even with two EVM7s, you're never going to get the exact same measurements. There's going to be some variation in the calibration and everything, but what we're seeing is that these are very, very accurate to monitor indoor air quality and to give you the trends and information that you need to make educated decisions on your buildings.
Okay. And one last question, another kind of pricing question. So for a 25,000 square foot floor, how many sensors would be recommended and what would be the approximate cost? So both the annual and the upfront costs.
Yeah, I would have to. So I can't give a solid answer on that. I wish I could, but I would have to see the floor plan, look at the different occupancy conditions. Is it, a variation of large cubicle spaces? Is it individual offices? Generally speaking, on a floor like that, it's typically, I'd say that's an average commercial office building floor in any kind of downtown throughout Canada. So I would say you want to have probably a minimum of 4 sensors on that floor. You'd only require one gateway in a kind of a centrally installed location. So I think from the top of my head on just similar quotes that I've provided, I would say it's around 10,000, but I would have to actually see the actual floor plan and understand kind of what you're trying to achieve with the ActiveIAQ deployment. So definitely one of those things where if you want to reach out to me afterwards, I'd be happy to have further discussion with you about your specific building, your specific needs, and custom tailor the ActiveIAQ program around that specific need.
Okay, that's great. There are no further questions in the chat or the Q&A.
Okay, well,
So,
thank you everybody for attending today. Definitely, like I said, if you do have any follow-up questions, definitely reach out through, is it through Emma that they would?
yes, so
Yeah.
Emma will be sending, she can send a copy of the slides if anyone wants them, and you can reach out to her. She sent the original request, and then she can get that info to Ryan Darcy. And if any of you have contacts at Pinchin, you can just reach out to those people as well, and they'll get the information over to Ryan, and we can definitely assist you. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.